The first clue. Aaron slowly placed his glowing hand onto the stone symbol. The moment his skin touched the carving, the entire shrine began glowing. Silver light filled the air. Ancient symbols on the walls lit up one by one. The ground trembled slightly. Then a beam of light shot upward from the altar. It formed a floating map in the air, a map of the mountains. Lyra stared in amazement. "It's showing us the path." Darius leaned closer. "Well, that's convenient." Aaron studied the glowing image. A narrow path wound through the mountains, leading to one location, a massive temple carved into a cliff. Lyra whispered softly, "The Temple of Skyfall." The map slowly faded. The shrine returned to silence. But now they knew something important. They were closer than they realized. A growing darkness. As the three travelers left the shrine, the sun had already begun to set. The whispering forest grew darker, but somewhere far away, another figure watched the glowing light in the sky. Inside a dark fortress beyond the mountains, the Black King stood beside a tall window. A soldier knelt before him. "My lord, we have found the Guardian." The Black King's eyes glowed faintly red. "And the flame?" The soldier swallowed nervously. "It has begun awakening." The Black King smiled slowly. "Good." Then he spoke the words that would begin a war. "Prepare the army. The hunt begins tonight." Leaving the whispering forest. Back in the forest, Aaron, Lyra, and Darius walked beneath the dim evening sky. The trees slowly began thinning. They were almost out. Aaron looked back one last time. The whispering forest stood silent behind them. But now the whispers sounded different, almost like a warning. Lyra spoke quietly. "The Black King will come for us soon." Darius cracked his knuckles. "Let him." Aaron looked toward the distant mountains. The peaks of Skyfall towered above the horizon. Their journey was far from over, but now they had something they didn't have before. A direction, a purpose, and a growing power that could change the fate of the world. The adventure was only getting bigger. Beyond the whispering forest. Morning arrived slowly as Aaron, Lyra, and Darius stepped out of the whispering forest. Behind them, the ancient trees stood silent, their whispers fading into the wind. Ahead stretched a wide valley. Ruined stone towers rose in the distance like broken teeth. Old walls crumbled along the hills. Pieces of ancient statues lay scattered among the grass. Aaron slowed his steps. What happened here? Darius folded his arms as he looked toward the ruins. This used to be one of the greatest cities in the world. Lyra nodded. It was called Valoria. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Never heard of it. That's because no one talks about it anymore, Darius said quietly. People call it something else now. Aaron looked around at the shattered buildings. What? Darius spoke the name slowly. The City of Broken Crowns. The Fall of Valoria. They walked through the valley toward the ruined city. The closer they came, the larger the destruction appeared. Massive towers had collapsed. Stone bridges lay broken across dried canals. The streets were empty, too empty. Aaron looked around uneasily. This place feels wrong. Lyra nodded. Because it's cursed. Aaron stopped. Cursed? Darius chuckled. Not literally. No, maybe a little. He gestured toward the shattered palace in the center of the city. Hundreds of years ago, 5 kings ruled here together. Aaron frowned. 5 kings in one city? Lyra explained. They formed an alliance to control trade between the kingdoms. For a while, Valoria was the richest city in the world. Darius kicked share power very well. Aaron nodded. Let me guess, they started fighting. Exactly, Darius said. The war destroyed the entire city. Lyra finished the story quietly. And when Kael Draven rose to power as the Black King, he finished what they started. Aaron looked at the massive ruined palace. Now it's just abandoned. Lyra shook her head slowly. Something still lives here. As they walked through the city gates, the wind echoed through empty streets. Loose doors creaked, broken banners hung from cracked walls. And something felt strange. Aaron looked around carefully. You're not alone. Darius smiled slightly. You're learning. Lyra placed her hand on her sword. Stay alert. Suddenly, a voice echoed across the street. Travelers? All three turned instantly. A young woman stood on the roof of a broken building. She wore dark robes decorated with glowing symbols. In one hand, she held a wooden staff. Her long black hair moved gently in the wind. But the most striking thing about her was the faint purple glow around her fingers. Magic. Aaron raised his hands casually. Well, hello there. We were hoping someone lived here. The girl jumped down from the roof with surprising grace. She landed softly on the street. Her eyes studied them carefully. You shouldn't be here. Lyra crossed her arms. And why is that? The girl pointed toward the horizon. Because the Black King's army is coming. The young mage. The three travelers exchanged glances. Darius sighed. Why does everyone keep saying that today? The girl tilted her head. Because it's true. She walked closer. Her staff tapped lightly against the stone road. My name is Mira. Aaron smiled slightly. I'm Aaron. This is Lyra, and that's Darius. Darius bowed dramatically. Charming swordsman at your service. Mira ignored him. Her eyes focused on Aaron's glowing hand. The silver mark pulsed softly. Mira's expression changed instantly. You're the Guardian. Aaron blinked. You know about that too? Mira nodded. I study ancient magic. The Silver Flame legend is older than most kingdoms. Lyra stepped forward. Then you know what the Black King wants. Mira nodded slowly. He wants the flame's power. Darius leaned against a broken wall. Well, that's not very surprising. Mira looked toward the mountains. But he's not just sending scouts anymore. Aaron felt a chill. What do you mean? Mira spoke quietly. His entire army is marching this way.
The approaching storm. The four climbed the remains of an old watchtower. From the top, they could see the far plains. Dust clouds rose in the distance, huge ones. Aaron squinted. What is that? Mira spoke softly. The Black King's war host. Darius whistled. Well, that's a lot of soldiers. Lyra narrowed her eyes. They're heading for the mountains. Aaron looked confused. Why? Mira answered. Because the Temple of Skyfall is there. Lyra nodded. They must know we're going. Darius crossed his arms. That means we're running out of time. Aaron watched the massive dust clouds slowly moving across the land. Thousands of soldiers marching toward the mountains, toward the temple, toward him. His heart pounded. This just became a war. A dangerous plan. The group climbed down from the tower. Mira spoke first. If the Black King reaches the temple before us, the silver flame could fall into his hands. Lyra nodded. We need to reach the mountains before the army. Darius scratched his chin. That won't be easy. Aaron looked confused. Why not? Darius pointed toward the road behind them. Because his army will pass right through this city. Mira added quietly, and they'll search everything. Aaron frowned. So what do we do? Darius smiled slowly. I have an idea. Lyra looked suspicious. That worries me already. Darius pointed toward the old city gates. We delay them.
Aaron blinked. You want to fight an army? Darius shook his head. No, I want to slow them down. Mira's eyes lit up slightly. With magic. Lyra finally understood. The old bridges. Mira nodded. Yes, if we collapse the main road bridges, their army will be forced to take the longer mountain route. Darius grinned. That buys us time. Aaron looked at the massive city. And how exactly do we collapse stone bridges? Mira smiled. I can help with that. The bridge explosion. The four hurried toward the largest bridge in the city. It stretched across a deep canyon. If it fell, the army would have to travel days around it. Mira planted her staff into the stone. Glowing purple symbols formed around the bridge pillars. Aaron watched in amazement. You're really going to destroy it? Mira nodded. Once the spell begins, we need to run. Darius cracked his neck. I love plans that end with explosions. Lyra rolled her eyes. Just be ready. Mira raised her staff. Magic surged around the bridge. The stones began vibrating. The ground trembled. Cracks spread across the massive structure. Mira shouted, "Now!" The four sprinted down the road. Behind them, the bridge groaned loudly. Then, boom! The entire bridge collapsed into the canyon. A massive cloud of dust exploded into the sky. Aaron stopped and looked back. Wow! Darius laughed. That should slow them down. Lyra nodded, but not forever. Mira looked toward the mountains. The temple is still days away. Aaron tightened his grip on his sword. Then we'd better keep moving. A new companion joins. As they left the ruined city behind, Mira walked beside them. Darius glanced at her. So, you're joining us now? Mira shrugged. Someone has to make sure you don't destroy the world. Aaron smiled. That's fair. Lyra looked toward the towering peaks ahead. The Skyfall Mountains rose higher and closer now. Their journey was becoming more dangerous, but their team had grown stronger. 4 travelers now walked the road toward destiny. A guardian, a warrior, a rogue swordsman, and a mage. Behind them, the dust of a marching army darkened the horizon. Ahead of them waited the ancient temple and the truth about the silver flame. The greatest chapter of their adventure was about to begin. The shadow of the mountains. The road from the city of broken crowns grew steeper as the day passed. The land slowly changed. Green valleys faded into rocky hills. Trees became sparse and twisted by the cold mountain winds. And above everything, towering over the world like giants, stood the Skyfall Mountains. Their peaks were hidden behind drifting clouds. Snow glowed faintly near their summits. Aaron stared upward in awe. So that's where the temple is? Lyra nodded. Somewhere among those peaks. Darius sighed. Well, that looks extremely inconvenient. Mira smirked. Legendary temples rarely build themselves beside comfortable roads. Aaron chuckled nervously. Of course they don't. But his smile faded when he looked behind them. In the far distance, a massive dust cloud still followed. The Black King's army was coming, and they were closing the distance. A narrow path. By late afternoon, the travelers reached a narrow mountain path. Tall stone cliffs rose on both sides. The path itself was barely wide enough for wagons. Below the cliffs stretched a deep canyon where cold wind howled endlessly. Lyra studied the terrain carefully. This is the Falcon Pass. Darius nodded. I've heard of it. One of the only ways through these mountains. Mira looked down the path. If the army reaches this pass, they'll be forced to move slowly. Darius's eyes lit up. That means we can hold them off. Aaron blinked. Hold them off? You mean fight them? Darius grinned. Not the whole army, just the ones who get here first. Lyra crossed her arms. If we control this pass, we can delay them even longer. Aaron looked down the narrow path. One wrong step would send someone falling into the canyon. It's the perfect choke point. Mira nodded. And I can use magic to collapse parts of the cliff. Darius smiled. Now we're talking. Preparing the battlefield. The four worked quickly. Lyra gathered loose rocks along the cliff edges. Darius positioned old broken logs across the narrow trail. Mira carved glowing runes into the stone with her staff. Each rune pulsed faintly with magical energy. Aaron helped wherever he could, but his mind kept returning to the glowing mark on his hand. Every time he used the silver flame, it felt stronger, more alive, almost like something inside him was waking up. Lyra noticed him staring at his hand. "You're thinking too much," Aaron sighed. "I just don't understand this power." The weight of power. Aaron stared at the glowing mark on his hand. "I just don't understand this power," he admitted quietly. Lyra leaned against a rock nearby, watching him carefully. "The silver flame is ancient magic," she said. "It's not something you control like a sword or a spell." Aaron looked up. "Then what is it?" Lyra hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's more like a living force." Darius chuckled from across the path while stacking stones. "That's comforting. A living magical force inside your friend," Mira continued, carving glowing runes into the ground. "But Lyra is right. The flame chooses its guardian, and it grows stronger as the guardian grows." Aaron frowned. "So it's basically learning with me?" Mira nodded. "Exactly." Darius raised an eyebrow. "Well, hopefully it learns quickly." Because at that moment, the distant sound of horns echoed through the mountains. Low, deep, war horns. Lyra stood immediately. "They are here!" The first soldiers. A few minutes later, figures appeared at the far end of the pass. Black armored soldiers marched carefully along the narrow trail. Scouts, perhaps 20 of them. Their leader raised a hand when he saw the barricade of rocks ahead. He shouted something to the soldiers behind him. Lyra whispered to the group, "Wait until they're close." Aaron's heart pounded. This would be his first real battle. Not a small fight, not a few hunters, real soldiers, real danger. The soldiers slowly approached the blocked path. One of them stepped forward to move the rocks. Lyra raised her hand. "Now!" Darius kicked the wooden logs down the slope. They crashed into the soldiers below. Several were knocked off their feet. Lyra leaped from the rocks like lightning. Her sword flashed through the air. Clang! Steel met steel. Mira raised her staff. Purple magic surged across the ground. A glowing rune exploded beneath two soldiers. The blast knocked them backward. Aaron hesitated for only a second. Then he charged. His sword clashed against another soldier's blade. The impact shook his arms, but he held his ground. The fight filled the narrow pass with noise. Steel, magic, shouts, echoes bouncing off the cliffs. Within minutes, the remaining soldiers realized they were trapped. Their leader shouted desperately, "Retreat!" The survivors fled down the pass. Aaron stood, breathing heavily. That was intense. Darius grinned. "You're getting better." Lyra wiped blood from her blade. That was only the first wave. The army arrives. The wind carried new sounds through the mountains. Drums, many drums, slow and steady. Boom, boom, boom. Mira climbed onto a rock to see farther down the path. Her face went pale. "The army is here." Aaron stepped beside her. Below them, the narrow mountain road filled with soldiers. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Black armor covered the valley like a dark tide. Darius whistled. Well, that escalated quickly. Lyra's voice was calm but serious. We cannot fight them all. Mira pointed toward the cliff runes she had carved earlier. We don't need to. Darius smiled. Ah, the real plan.
The collapse. The army began marching into the pass. The narrow trail forced them into long lines, exactly what the group had hoped for. Lyra waited and waited until hundreds of soldiers had entered the pass. Then she shouted to Mira, "Now!" Mira slammed her staff into the ground. The glowing runes ignited instantly. Purple energy shot through the cliff walls. The mountain trembled. Cracks split across the stone. Aaron looked up just in time to see massive boulders breaking loose. "Move!" Lyra shouted. The four heroes ran toward the higher ledges. Behind them, the cliffs collapsed. Huge rocks thundered down into the pass. Boom! Dust exploded everywhere. The canyon shook with the sound of falling stone. When the dust finally cleared, the entire pass was blocked. A mountain of rubble sealed the road. The Black King's army was trapped on the other side. A temporary victory. Darius stared at the destruction. Well, that should slow them down. Mira nodded. Several days at least. Lyra looked toward the mountains. That's enough time for us to reach the temple. Aaron smiled with relief. We actually did it. But Lyra's expression remained serious. This isn't over. Aaron followed her gaze toward the far side of the pass. Small groups of soldiers were already climbing the cliffs, scouts, trying to find another way through. Darius shrugged. Armies are stubborn. Mira tightened her grip on her staff. They will find another path eventually. Lyra turned toward the mountains, which means we keep moving. The path beyond Falcon Pass grew steeper. Snow patches covered the ground. Cold winds blew down from the higher peaks. But something else filled the air now. Energy. Ancient magic. Aaron felt it immediately. The silver mark on his hand glowed brighter. Lyra noticed. We're getting close. Mira nodded. The temple must be nearby. Darius looked up toward the towering cliffs above them. So, somewhere up there is the most powerful magical flame in the world? Aaron nodded slowly. And the Black King wants it. Lyra added quietly. And if he reaches it first, the world may fall into darkness. The group continued climbing through the mountain trail. Above them, hidden among the clouds, ancient stone pillars slowly appeared, the first signs of the Temple of Skyfall, their final destination, and the place where the fate of the world would soon be decided.